right, good morning, welcome. We had to get everything situated, so we had to get some technical stuff taken care of before we could hop on with you. We're so glad you're here with us today. My name is Brian Albrecht. I am a chef ambassador for Carpigiani North America, and we are going to be making our own ice cream base today and then making a couple batches. So today's show is going to be a little bit different than what we've been doing. It may go a smidge longer than what we're used to. If you have to leave, just make sure to remember that you can always come back, and they are recorded and put up on YouTube and other places. So you can always research the spot where you left and pick up from there. So don't be afraid to do what you need to do. But we're going to get started today. And again, that's a little bit different. So we're going to start a base, which we have been using a pre-made base before. And what we're going to do today is make our own base using a ready 3045 DF back here by Carpigiani. It does have a hot process on it. So what this allows you as a proprietor to do is to, if you need to try a base or you're trying to make a recipe, you can use this machine to just run a small batch of base instead of having to make it in a large pesto chef or a pesto master. Now, I do want to point that out that Carpigiani does have pesto masters. I have a 60 liter and 120 liter machines, and that would be the way you'd want to do large amounts. You wouldn't want to do your whole business off of a ready like this and have to process each batch before you make it because it's a longer process. So today's show, what we're going to do is push things together here, or put things together, sorry, and then we're going to put it in the machine, let it do its thing, heat treating it, and while it's doing that, we're going to slide over here to a presentation, and I'm going to walk you through some of the pros and cons of making your own versus buying a pre-made base and some things all about that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit more educational today, maybe sometimes a little bit more than what you need, but take what you need out of it and just throw the rest of the way. But anyways, and then at the end, we are going to make a couple batches of ice cream using this. Very quick, easy ones, vanilla, honey, with a little bit of vanilla bean speck and a strawberry ice cream, so with the strawberry swirl. So do quite easy ones to just throw together quickly. So let's go ahead and get started because I don't want to take a lot of time. I want to get this thing processed and ready to go. So what I've done, and you will see in your recipes and slideshows that's going to be shared with you, and I believe that the notes will go out for you too, you're going to get this general base that we're making today. So if you want to try this in a machine of your own, you can take that recipe and scale it up, scale it down, whatever you need to do. We're going to actually use the middle column in the notes once you see that, and we're going to be using a gallon of milk. And I might have to need one more tub to mix things, but we're going to see if I can mix it all in one. So I'm taking a gallon of milk here, and I'm going to be using, of course, milk and cream. We're making a dairy base. But for today's purposes, we are going to add the cream at the end, kind of towards the heat top process, because really what we're trying to do here, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in our presentation, but what we're trying to do is let the materials, dry materials that I have here, rehydrate in the water that's provided in our whole milk here. So in these buckets, I have the various ingredients. So one of them, first one I'm going to be using, I'm going to set my milk aside because I immediately wanted to dump it in there. But I want to combine my dry ingredients together, okay? So my dry ingredients are, and I try to keep them in order. I have my skim milk powder. I have my sucrose, which is table sugar. I have my dry glucose syrup. And I have a stabilizer that I want to use. In addition to that, I'm using some honey to sweeten it and give us a little bit of a different taste on the base. Again, there's so many different base recipes out there that you have to just play with them, figure out which one works best for you, which flavor you like. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But for this one, we're going to take our sugars and we're going to combine all our dry ingredients. And I'm going to take a spatula real quick, and got some clumps of skim milk powder. I just wanted to break up a little bit. Ideally, I probably should have ran that through a little sifter or broke it up. Live TV, it happens. Okay, so I'm going to start just combining these dry ingredients for us. And so after we get all our dry ingredients kind of mixed together, we're going to then blend them into our milk so that we can allow them to start bonding and becoming friends again. And we've got our dry glucose. Again, dry glucose powder, even the skim milk, you can see when it popped out of my head there, that it's very fine. So what you want to do is really, anytime you're using these, is if you can mix them, pre-mix them so that they're not just dusting out and you're losing product into the air. It just helps to give it a little mix and blend it all together yourself. And then we have our stabilizer. Stabilizers are available again. We've kind of talked about this a little bit in the previous episodes, but stabilizers are available from different companies. So finding a stabilizer that you like. What's nice about the pre-made stabilizers from the companies that are out there is they've already done all the measuring of the different types of stabilizers in there, and they've kind of got it all scientifically formulated for you. It just makes life a lot easier than trying to actually play around with Gower gum and xanthan gum and trying to figure out which the amounts you need and all that. You can do it. You can do it. FDU2 here, it kind of talks a little bit about that, going into that a little bit. All right, so let me get these buckets out of our way. And we've got our milk, we've got our dry ingredients, and we're going to go back here to the blender and add those as we blend. I'm going to set that up there. We've got a turbo mix back here, which is basically a big old blender, immersion blender. And there we go. It wasn't seating right. Okay. So again, just it looks like a giant immersion blender that you can kind of see on a stick blender that we've used before. We've actually got this one up and running, so we're going to go ahead and try using it. Yes. Again, perfect is up to you as the owner and how you want to make your product. We're using a Neutro 50. So that's when you talk about the 50s and there's 10s and there's hundreds. So that's the amount of stabilizer you use per liter. So we've got about 50, I believe, in here because we're using about a gallon of milk, a little bit more maybe. But you can check with, I know Pre-Gel makes a good stabilizer. Fabi is one we're using today. Mecca 3, I'm sorry, Mecca 3 makes one. Just check with your local suppliers and ask what's a good stabilizer to use for if you're making a gelato or you're making an ice cream. Okay, hope that answered the question. All right, so we're gonna start this up, and you have to forgive me. I get to use this like one time a year. There we go. I let go too soon. Okay, there's a way to do this that it stays on. Hold on. And of course, being an Italian. Not sure why it's not staying on for me. So what we're going to do in that case is I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of this and mix. About maybe half of it. Mix it up and then we'll add some more. Can't touch it. That's right. Now I got there. Very finicky. Now decided to stay on. So it finally decided to stay on a little bit by itself, so I was able to get it mixed. But I'm going to go ahead and mix it a little bit more. That we've got it on here. Got it all in there. Get that over there. I'll stick that under there. All right, so as you can see, we took some time to make sure that one was really mixed up well, because we had sugar in there. We'll make sure that sugar gets dissolved really well. So that's really all we're going to do for that. Before the show, I ended up just going ahead and sanitizing our machine to save us some time on that. So everything's done on that. So I've got my base here, minus the cream. So the cream I'm going to put in here at the end of, or kind of at the height of its temperature, so that it allows for the machine to just kind of cool down a little faster for our show purposes. Normally, you could certainly mix in your cream at this point and go ahead and run the whole thing with the cream in it. It's not going to hurt it one way or the other. We're just trying to speed it along for the sake of TV, so to speak. All right, so we're going to have, and you see on our machine, we do have a cold process, which we've used before to make our frozen product. And then there's a cold and hot process, which allows it to do both. But we're going to use our hot process today. So we're going to do a gelato hot age. And there's ice cream hot. Just so you know, there's other settings on here. There's a hot ice cream hot age, ice cream hot cold. So we're doing gelato hot, so our hot age, sorry. So we allow it to age a little bit in our machine while we're talking, okay? So we're going to hit start. So what this is going to do is it's going to, and we're going to show you a kind of a diagram of how that looks. But what this is doing now is it's taking that, it's mixing it up some more, and it's going to then heat it up. And we're going to talk about where we want to heat it to, and then it's going to hold it there, and then it's going to start cooling it off automatically in our machine. So what's nice about that is if I'm trying to want to kind of have a base recipe, maybe I do have a pasta chef or a pasta master where I'm making a huge batch normally, but now I want to try a different change to my recipe of my base. Making my own base allows you to control, again, we're going to talk about that, but allows you to control a lot of different things. So with this, if I want to make a small change, this is the way I want to try it instead of making a whole batch of it in my pasta master. Okay. So when this reaches the height setting of 185 where it's going to hold, that's when I'm going to go ahead and add my cream. You know what? I forgot my sugar or my honey. Let me go ahead and pour that in. At least it's liquid. I'm going to stop that for a second because I do want to take a spatula and get my honey down in there, mix it up real good. See, because it's still blending, so it should be fine to blend it in now. It happens. In our shop, we forget something, we add it in the last second. So we've had some interesting things turn out, but most of the time it's correct. All right. Might be a little messy to clean up later, but we'll deal with that. Get as much honey down there. I don't want the machine to be running when I'm doing this, so that's why I stopped it for just a second. Okay. So let's let that mix up here. Okay. turned around and there sat my honey. I was like, oops. So my cream is what I want to add next. So I'm going to put that back here. If you guys can help me keep your eye on that 185 mark, that would be beneficial. All right. So we're going to move over to here. So this is the first slide, which basically shows you the recipe that I just followed, almost followed. And I'm going to move this out here because I've got kind of my cheat sheet and I got a mouse I think I have to use to change this. So, all right. So again, this is the ingredients. Again, you'll see that kind of showing up in my good on camera, Olivia. Let's make sure we're good before I keep going too far. Better? All right. So again, this was the recipe I followed. I had all this stuff pre-measured out for us today, using the materials that I talked about. So we're going to pass by this, but you'll see this when you get your materials. Maybe I can just use my spacebar. Yes. Okay, good. All right. So why are we putting it through this heat process, right? So a little reason we do this, and your big companies do this. We do it in our Pasto Chef, or the machine does it in our Pasto Master Pasto Chef, which is fantastic. Old days, you'd stand in front of a stove, and we still talk to people that actually do this. They want to make a small batch. They'll actually go through this process. They'll use a thermometer, and they'll sit there and stir it and make sure it's all going the right way. But when you look at kind of this thermostat of where things are happening, right? If we look at where we're trying to get the freezer, we're trying to do a pasteurization. We're trying to sterilize it, and we're trying to get them into that high temperature range where we're removing those pathogenics and all those bacterias and spores surviving. So we're trying to kill those off within that range. So that's why we take it up to that 185 mark. Notice the removal of all microorganisms and spores are going to be way up there at 250 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're not going to go that high. We're not going to have any bad ones left at 185 where we're going to be. But we want to get it into that mark. But if an ice cream or a base stays down in this area, we are looking at where that's kind of like that room temperature. This is why we don't leave stuff sitting out, right? We want to get it leftovers in the refrigerator quickly. So we don't want it to sit there at room temperature because that is our dangerous zone for food safety. If you start fridging it down, you've got a slow growth, and then when you freeze something, it's just kind of like what you experience in the kitchen. When you come home, you put things in the fridge because they need to be in the fridge, or you put stuff in the freezer because they need to be in the freezer. You don't want things to grow, okay? So that's that kind of common thing that we see all the time, but this is kind of where we're at with ice cream. So making your own versus purchasing it. Let's talk a little bit about that. So when we purchase base, and what we have done in the past is we have been using base from Meadowvale and other vendors that we have brought in and used. And what this allows you to have is, it allows you to have quality, but that quality is subjective. What are you looking for? So as the proprietor or somebody that's going to enjoy your ice cream making process, you have to decide where your product's going to come from, where your base starts, because this is the base of your ice cream. So if you think about, I can tell you this a little bit about when we were in a class back in 22, 23 here, we sampled different providers, pre-made, purchased dairy base. And each one had just a slightly different taste. And I can remember that some people in the class liked the taste of this one versus the taste of that one. Some of them had a more milky caramel taste. Some of them had a more cooked taste. It all depended on how the provider prepared their base. So it is subjective. What are you looking for in your base? Your availability, right? When you look at getting something, are you in a spot where you can actually get that dairy base? Is it something that's local to you? Is it something you're going to have shipped in? When it's shipped in, is it going to be shipped in fresh or frozen? So a couple things to keep in mind. If it comes in frozen, now you've got a 2 or 3 day window that you have to allow for that dairy base to thaw out before you can start making ice cream with it. But if it's local, you can order it in. It's usually not frozen, can be, but usually not. And then you use what you need to use within that time frame that you're allowed to have it. And each one's different. So you got to check your time frame when it was made. And then once you open that bag, I think we've talked about that before, we want to use it up pretty quickly. We usually, for us in a bigger machines, we use a whole bag at a time, so it's not a problem. But if I'm making a smaller batch, I have to cap it off, and I have to remember that base bag has been opened, and I need to use that product pretty quickly. I don't want to go back to that last slide. I don't want that stuff starting to, because once you expose it to air, you're exposing it to bacteria. Price, right? So if you're having it shipped in, or even if it's local, yeah, it's great to have a local creamery making your product, and you can say that. But I can speak from experience that our local creamery here, which we love, is extremely expensive. So as a proprietor to turn around and try to make a profit on that, that's going to be tough. So now I'm going to a more larger availability, right? I'm going someplace where I can get that product a little bit cheaper and still make a profit on it. So scout around. Delivery, frequency, minimum order, right? So some of the companies that you order from will only sell it to you in pallets, which you're taking, I believe it's 50 cases at a time. And you better have room. And if that product comes in frozen, you're either going to be thawing out 50 cases and using it very quickly, or you're going to have storage space for 50 cases of dairy-based frozen. So if your frequency is an issue, think about your providers are shipping it out and it comes in once a week. That's fine. But I know for us, we have to get product delivered in 2 or 3 times a week sometimes. Just depends on how much of you're selling and market. Service, are they dependable? Are you going to have somebody that you know is going to be providing you with a routine amount that you need to keep your product going? And we're going to talk a little bit about that backup. Yep, right there it is. What if your delivery fails? What if your freezer fails? What do you do? Right? You've got product freezing, or you've got even your refrigerator goes out, right? You've got your dairy base thawed out, ready to go, and you walk in that next morning and your refrigerator's got down. You don't know how long that product has been sitting in there and warming up, where it allows for that bacteria growth. That's why we started with that slide, so you get that in your head. Now that you're thinking about that, you've got to worry about your temperatures. So if delivery fails, what is your backup plan? And we'll show you a couple ideas of what that could look like. I think it's in this slideshow. Your packaging. So the packaging can be like the bladders, which are the bags that we have been using here, but it also can come in the 1-gallon jugs, just like we had our milk. So we had the milk jug that we use. I've seen dairy base come in this as well. So it's, again, what do you have room for? This is all the stuff you have to think about when you're planning your production space. Do I have space to put a refrigerator and store gallons or boxes with bags, or do I have a freezer? How am I going to do this? Okay, so this is all definitely when you purchase a product. Now, you're going to see some of that come back when you pre-make it, because if you pre-make it, you still got to have it someplace to store it and keep it at temperature. Shelf life. So you've got a 1, 2, 2 weeks, 30 days, 90 days. What is your shelf life on your particular dairy base that you're ordering? Frozen base can come in that it was made in 2 or 3 months ago, but once it's been flash frozen, it's fine until you thaw it, right? It'll keep for like a year or so once it's frozen. But once you thaw it out, then you have got to use that within, I think it's like 14 to 21 days. So you're looking at 2, maybe 3 weeks. And then, of course, when you're doing a purchasing you've got payment, because now you're thinking, okay, well, I've got to buy the product, so I now owe somebody else the money. Where if you're making your own, you do still have to buy your milk and cream, but you do have a little more control about that. You still have to buy your products, but you're usually buying those and storing them. Okay. Any questions on purchased? Okay. I don't want to forget you out there. Please speak up or put questions in the chat. We're always open for those. If we can't answer them today for you, we'll get you the answers and get back to you. So now let's switch to made in-house. You're just thinking, okay, well, I'd like to have a little more control. I'd like to make my base taste just a little bit different than the shops down the street. Or I want to play around with like we had Andia here. She wanted to play around with a little bit of cheese in it, all sorts of different things you can do. So you have that quality control option, right? You choose, okay, I can't afford to get my dairy base from my local creamery, but I certainly can afford to get the milk from there. And on occasion, go down and pick that up. And I can pick up, 16 gallons at a time, come back and make my base with using their cream, their milk and their cream maybe. So again, Now, what if I want to change that? I just mentioned this a little bit, but what if I want to change that base recipe, or I want to do a chocolate base versus a regular white base? It's a little bit more adaptable because you have that option to change everything. You are not on that. You are not reliant on that company. I'm just doing all right, looks like it's hot. I'm just gonna pause there. I'm gonna move over, put my cream in, or check my cream. It's okay. So it's only at 152, so we're good. We got a little bit of time. I just wanted to check my temperature. I'm sorry. I thought it was like ready. So we're not reliant on a company or a delivery schedule. So as I said before, what happens if that company cannot produce for you? Well, we've had that happen. We've been stuck where we had expected a delivery and they said, oh, it didn't work. Maybe the truck reefer goes out, and then all their materials spoil. So you have to be able to plan on that when you're purchasing it. But with this, you're not relying on them. You're not dependent on when they can deliver. Maybe they only can deliver 1 day a week. Now you don't have to. You can make it anytime you want. But it still may require a milk delivery or for you to go out and get milk and bring it back. Okay, so just keep those things in mind. Why are we heat treating it, right? Why are we quote unquote pasteurizing it again when the milk came in? This is a question we get in class a lot. And the milk's already been pasteurized because it has to be on the shelf. You've got cream that's been pasteurized. Why are we doing this again? Well, we're doing more of a heat treatment. And the reason we want to do that is all these right here. So let's go through them real quick. Improves the flavor, right? If I just threw this stuff together and did sort of what they call a cold process, and it is possible to do, even a cold process, you really need it to, it's not on this screen, but you need it to age. So you need it to sit together and let those things rehydrate. But when you're heat treating it, it allows you to improve that flavor, blend the ingredients better, because now you're rehydrating all the dry ingredients I just stuck in there. Improving the shelf life, right? Because now you're adding that stabilizer and you're letting it do its thing. You're producing a more uniform product because you always know that it's going through the same process, whether it be in a ready like this or Pasto Chef, Pasto Master. You know that it's going through that same product, that same steps to get that uniform product. And of course, we're destroying any chance of having disease-producing bacteria pathogenic in it. Now, I will say this, you got to be careful. A lot of states are very picky about this, so you can't just like, oh, I want to do this, and I want to get a Pasto Master, Pasto Chef, and make my own. Okay, great, but you have to check with your state regulations on how you can do that, on where it has to be stored, and all those good things, okay? So don't just take my word for it. Do your research on that. So we also can use this for some dairy-free bases because again, what we want to do back is blend those ingredients and rehydrate because you're still using some of those same products in a dairy-free base. Any questions yet on those? Nope. Okay. So here is the little diagram I was talking about earlier. And this is the white base. This is what we have in our machine. So basically, this is what the machine is doing. It's easier to see this transition or this graph literally on a Pasto Chef, Pasto Master. It tells you when it reaches these interesting temperatures to say, add this, add that. It's really cool because it's like you don't have to even think, you just do it. Now, with this machine, we're just waiting to get to that 185. It's at 172. That was my purpose to check. And we're going to add that cream in. And what that's doing is at 185, it's going to stop heating and it's going to allow it to sit and start to cool down. So by allowing us to put the cream in there, it's telling the machine, hey, it's a little cooler, a little faster, because again, we want to do this for TV today. Normally, you can see here's where I'd add the cream, right? I could probably add my cream right now and be fine because we're at 172. But when we put our milk in, coming out of the refrigerator around 39 degrees, all my powders could go in separately at that place. And this is again in a Pasto Chef, Pasto Master. It's telling you, okay, put my milk in, it starts warming that milk up. So what's doing, right? The milk is now warm and it's going to be more receptive to blending the dried powdered products, right? Then it blends those up, keeps on heating a little bit. You add your cream, it still blends and heats. And now it gets to that 185 where, again, it's trying to kill off some of that bacteria and everything in there. And again, we're just making sure we're allowing that to happen. And then it stops heating and starts its cooling down. And normally in a Pasto Chef, Pasto Master, this process takes about 2 hours. And then after it's done and it's cooled down, it ages. And that's where that 4 to 12 hour range, allow it age. A lot of places will put their stuff together in the evenings, turn their pasta chef, pasta master on, go home. It does what it needs to do. They come in the next day, it's ready to go. They extract their dairy base, start production. So it's a really kind of cool, it's like having another employee literally working overnight for you and you don't have to pay them. All right, we are at 185, the mix says, so I'm gonna go ahead and add my cream. Machine changed as well. Just so you're aware, because the machine heated up, my honey mess at the top is gone. That's good. I didn't think about that part. So what did we do for production? Why are we doing this? How does it look when we're doing production? Oh, that's right. We have one more diagram or a couple diagrams in here. One is this is changes because we have an egg base or a yellow base, maybe more like a custard or base, or maybe even a dairy-free base, because now we see that graph change, right? So again, we're still starting at the same spot. We get to that, add that powder, we add our cream, but notice it's only getting up to 149 now. So remember, we don't want to cook our eggs. If we get them that too high, well, that would be bad. But now we're holding, instead of getting to 185 and starting to drop, which this machine is now already down to 165. So it's dropped 20 degrees and it should continue to drop and tell us when it's ready to extract. Now we're letting this product with the eggs in it sit for 30 minutes at a 149 temperature and then start to cool and age. So again, still 2-hour window there, but it's the way it does it at that 149. Okay. And then if you look at the next one, I think, yeah, it's our chocolate one. Then a chocolate one, notice we're going a little higher. We're going to that 194. And this is where it's, if I'm going to make a chocolate, I'm going to add that chocolate chips or chocolate calays there, because at 194, they're going to melt pretty quick and blend right into what they're trying to make. So everything's pretty much the same there. You're adding your powders and your cocos now because we're making a chocolate base. And then we're adding our chocolate chips or calays there. It starts to cool down, again, aging for that 4 to 12 hours. So if you were trying to do this at night, again, you'd have to wait a little bit, at least till it gets to that point, if you're going to make a chocolate base. Any questions on any of those bases on the diagrams? Pretty self-explanatory, I think. All good? Okay. All right. So production process, ingredients, and composition. So what is the process? When we go through this, what are we doing, right? And so we're taking our ingredient. So think about this. If you have a ice cream that you want to make, right? You have got to think about, here's what I'm going to make. And now I got to start thinking, I'm going to select my ingredients for that, right? I'm going to sit down, I'm going to formulate my recipe. Now, if you're using a pre-made base, as we talked about before, then your base part is done for you. All you're doing is calculating in your recipe, you're calculating your flavoring, sort of like what we've been doing with our flavor series, seasonal series. So, and this kind of talks a little bit more maybe about the process of making your own, right? So you have selected the ingredients, goes back to the question, which stabilizer, right? You're going to choose your stabilizer, you're going to choose where you want to get your milk from, all those ingredients. And then you're going to formulate your recipe. And if you're really into formulating your own recipe and you'd like a little bit better understanding of that, then we suggest you sign up for one of our courses here, because it goes into deep formulation recipes and how to compensate for different things and things like that. Then you go into heat treatment, and that's what we're sort of doing here in a small scale. So again, that would be the large scale. It might be your pasta chef, pasta master. Again, the process is adding in the aging part, and then we're going into the flavoring. So we're doing all these things up to this point in our machine, and then wait to get that out. We're going to turn around and flavor it with our vanilla and strawberry options today. And then down here with the flavoring and compensation, they kind of go together sometimes. So in the process of flavoring, if you're using a heavy fatty product, you're going to have to compensate for the fat that you're adding sort of in maybe a nut paste, right? So you might have to add some sugar to balance that out, or water or milk. And there's a whole compensation little graph that you learn in courses too. But that's what that means, is like you have to make sure that you're still balancing that recipe, even though, and this still goes for us when we buy our own. If you know that you're adding a fatty paste, then you need to compensate by adding sugar or milk or a little bit more water or something like that. We go through our freezing processes, which is where basically what we've been doing. We take our base, we stick it in the machine, and we freeze it up. We extract it, we taste it, make sure it tastes good. We stick it in our hardening cabinet, and then from the hardening cabinet, it comes out and goes into our showcase ready for selling. And if it's a gelato, you need to take it out of that showcase and put it back into storage overnight if you're trying to keep it for going on for a long time. You also it may go from hardening to storage and then out to the customer, because that's just the way you have to store it. You can't always keep it in the hardening cabinet. Any questions on the process? Okay. Methods. So let's talk a little bit about methods. Today we used like the separate ingredients, right, to put together. There are ready mix powders, and I meant to grab one before the show started and I forgot. But sometimes they're made, and I think a lot of companies call them sprints, because you kind of like, if you need to sprint to the shelf and grab it off and keep going, I guess maybe that's how I think about it. But it's already pre-formulated for everything you need to make a gelato base or an ice cream base or a sorbet base. You grab that bag, then you take it and you mix in your liquids, mix it really good, and you come out with your base. And that's all there is to that, right? So what that's doing is it's eliminating the selection of ingredients, eliminating your balancing section. It's eliminating that aging section. However, with that, I still say when you have a dry base like this, if you can let it age even for 10, 15 minutes, you're going to have a better end product, because it gives it time for all that dry ingredients in the bag to kind of rehydrate while you're doing something else or getting ready. So when I'm using a sprint or a bag product like that, I tend to go ahead and make it up maybe a batch or two ahead of time, and then I run a couple batches, and then I run that batch. So it allows time for it to sit and rehydrate. All right. And then what it still needs to do is you still have a preparation of the mixing. You still need to freeze it, and you still need to store it, which is conservation, which in this case, they're showing a soft serve machine because it allows it to be in the machine, and our machines refrigerate it and store it for you and conserve it. Okay. There is another one called a ready mix, which is an ultra high temp mix already done for you. That's a liquid mix, and some of those are shelf stable, and you just literally go to the shelf and you pull it off and you pour it in, and that eliminates all of these things. And then all you need to do is freeze it and conserve it. And that's all there is to it. So these are a little bit more expensive. The last two are a little bit more expensive because they've done all the work for you, right? So now there are, okay, so our mix is back at refrigeration, and it says gelato. Oops, I don't want it to start freezing yet, so I'm going to stop it there. Okay, so what it's done its process, and it says it is asking me, do you want to make gelato? Not yet. I need to extract it and flavor it up. So we're going to finish this up real quick, and then we'll get to that. I think we're almost to the end. The other one is a frozen mix, very similar to your UHT mix, but you do have to account, now you have a step where you have to defrost it. And this can go for your pre-made bag mix too, that when you get it and it's frozen, again, letting it sit and defrost for a day or two. I know for us, if they come in those cardboard boxes, they act as little insulators. So I suggest if you do that, get them out of those cardboard boxes if you can, because that just insulates and takes it a little bit longer. We have found that if you get it out of the box, it defrosts a little bit faster, and we can use it sooner than we would have to if we didn't take it out. And when we do leave them in there, it's several days before we can get them actually usable. All right, so process with pasteurizing fresh ingredients just kind of shows you the top of a pasteurizer or a Pasteur Master. That's kind of like what that looks like from the top. You can see how they're adding the dry ingredients to the milk. It's already in there. So that's what one of the machines looks like. That's a good picture of it, what's sitting back here in our showroom. We also have, you can also kind of do the same thing in your soft serve units, right? So that's what they're showing, pasteurizing fresh ingredients because the soft serve machines will heat treat and process. So they'll be able to do that for you as well. You also have your ready mix powders we discussed. Your soft serve units are great for those. That's a great way to go about not having to store a dairy base for your soft serve machine. We have soft serve, but we chose to go with a dairy base versus a bagged unit. We had to very kind of really weigh the cost variance on that and the accessibility and easeability of that. That's something on you as your owner, as the owner, what to do. Then we have that ready mix again is a great option for our self-serve and the frozen mix as well for soft serve. So, and again, they can still be used for batch freezers as well because there's products out there that allow for those as well. But if you have a soft serve, which is a lot of the time, sometimes it's just easier to work with these types of ways that they're put together.
Do you have a question?
Yep.
Few machines do pasteurize and churn instantly and do not get time to age. Does it have to affect on taste or structure if we do not age and heat and churn in the same machine?
Okay, I'm not sure I caught all that, Olivia. Can you read it again for me?
Not pasteurize and churn instantly and do not get time to age. Does it have effect on taste or structure if we do not age and heat and churn in the same machine?
Not so you're saying you would take it out and let it age and churn it later?
Says that without aging, there's a problem in structure, and does the aging need to happen in the same machine at the same time, or can she take it out?
Take it out and age it. Yeah, you can take it out and age it. Yeah. So I mean that's not gonna affect anything, but the aging process is important. So we want to keep that in mind that you're always aging it to allow for that all their little things that you just stuck in there to do their work. So even if your machine doesn't do all these things, as long as it gets mixed and heated up, and this goes back to doing on a stove, right? When they used to do it in the old days, right? You heat it up in a stove pot, you're not going to be able to age it right there. You're going to have to cover it and stick it in the refrigerator, let it cool down, and it might sit there overnight, and then you bring it out and you process it. Does that kind of help? Maybe if we think about it in that way, analogy, just to kind of think that this is how we did it in the old days. Now the machines are lovely and they can do it all for us. But not every machine is built that way. That's true. It's true. Okay, so the production methods here, this is kind of another way, and I'm not going to go too deep in all these slides because I want to get to making our product and I want to keep you all day. But you can see here, your green check marks are the things you want to look at as if you're considering kind of like the pros and cons list, and you'll see this list in your handouts that you get. But just to kind of pinpoint a couple things, if I were to tell you to think about, I think to me, you know, if you're in business and you're thinking money, look at all these and think of cost, okay? Because you know you're going to have more cost in some of these, right? Pasteurizing your fresh ingredients, your costs are going to fluctuate a little bit more, right? Because our milk cost changes. Now, obviously, that affects these as well, but further down the road, right? So you've got to think about it, but if you buy a large quantity of these products, not making your own, but the pre-made products, now you're able to kind of take advantage of their buyer discount because they're getting larger quantities. So there is some cost savings to some of these versus making it your own as well. All right, so we are at our recipe for vanilla and strawberry. So we're going to get started on making our ice cream. Let me push this back out of the way. Hey, let's go ahead and get some of this stuff extracted out. I'm going to pull a couple things over at a time. Now, I'm going to choose to do my vanilla first. Reason being is I've got a strawberry as well. Strawberry can be considered an allergen, so you want to be careful with that. And you also, if you're doing seeds and the little strawberry seeds, you have to think about that, cleaning your machine between processing, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and actually, I think what I'll do is extract all of it into this one. So again, we sped up the process here just for our television purposes. But it has cooled right back down. It went up to 185, held there for a little bit, and then started dropping. Trying to get as much out of that as we can. And again, since I'm making a vanilla first, it's not going to be affected really if I leave this little bit in there because I'm going to be flavoring it. So I'm just trying to get as much out as I can right now, but I'm not going to worry about getting all of it out. Okay, we'll shut that down. Drip, drip. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to measure out 4 quarts of that per gallon. Turn it so you can see. I got just a little bit. I'm going to go just a little more because I've got enough here. Yeah. Okay. That'll be my strawberry. All right. So choosing to do vanilla, you again have your choice of your vanillas, right? I've got some Lockheed vanilla right here and just says natural label. So probably assume that it's a bourbon vanilla, Madagascar bourbon. And I have it already measured out for 1 ounce. I forgot I already did that. So I'm going to put that in. And I'm just following the recipe. I've got some vanilla bean specks that I'm going to add in too. So funny story on this is, yeah, if you're in the business, you know what vanilla bean specks are. You enjoy them in your ice cream, knowing that it's vanilla ice cream because that's what vanilla is. Technically, they really add no flavor, but they add a visual appeal to your ice cream. But I have had a customer say, that was weird to get ice cream with specks in it and like little bugs. I'm like, I don't know what a vanilla speck is. So I've got about a teaspoon here. I'm just going to blend that in. And let's go ahead and push this through here a little bit. This one doesn't have to be blended too long. Of course, when I want it to stop, it doesn't. All right, so we have our vanilla here. One thing I like to do is, you know me, I like to taste as I go. If you've watched any of my show before, taste a little bit and make sure it's where I want it. Could use a little bit more vanilla. Not quite tasting that come out a little bit. So I might add just another little 1/2 ounce. Little splash. Now I don't have to really mix that up too much because the machine will do that work for me. And then we get ready to pour in. Any questions so far on anything we've done or slides that we talked about? Spatula. All good? Sorry? No questions yet. All right. Quiet group today. 39. It had cooled it back down to 39 degrees. And again, if you kind of go back to an earlier question, if you were doing this again, if it was in the refrigerator, it'd be like taking it out of the refrigerator. Okay, so again, this is a honey vanilla. So we used some honey in our base, but what I'm going to do in the end is when this gets extracted, I'm going to add in some honey swirl to it. So we're going to get started on this one. Gelato. All right. While that's going, and I always suggest too, kind of going back to what, we were talking about earlier, if you have a local creamery, right? Maybe you have a local apiary. And so I have a friend of mine that does some honey and I want to use their product as much as I can in our ice cream. So that's just something that's good to always think about and support your local. And that way too, you can also advertise it in your ice cream. Okay. And they do some great honey. All right. So let's move some of this out of my way. So the next one, we're going to go ahead and just prepare this so that we're ready for it, is our strawberry base. Because this one, I'm going to do a couple of different things. I have to change my blade on there to help break up the strawberries. What I've got here is, according to the recipe, 2 pounds of strawberries. In fact, I don't even have to move to this base. I can mix it up right in here. 2 pounds of strawberries, another gallon of base. And when this one comes out, we're going to swirl in a strawberry Italian arabesque, or if you just want to think about a strawberry swirl, strawberry variegate is another term. Just you can choose to put that in your strawberry or not. It's a great taste. It's a great idea. All right, so the strawberry, we're going to flavor this with the 1 pound of strawberry. So what we need to do is combine this in here, and we need it to break it up. And on second thought, I'm going to go ahead and switch over it. Since this was just a vanilla, no other flavorings, I can use it. I'm going to go ahead and do it in this because it's a little more narrow for my machine and I don't have to go so far around. And I'm going to show you a trick too, is if I only really need to blend up and break up all these strawberries, I don't need to do it in the whole base. I can do it in some of the base, okay? So now I'm going to take my strawberries and transfer them. I can't do it in this little blue bowl, but I'm going to transfer my pound of strawberries to that bowl. And then we'll move back over to this machine. Now, if you don't have one of these Turbo Mix blenders, that's fine. What this allows you to do, though, is it's got a special little head on it that you can switch out. And it breaks up the strawberries. I can get it to seat in there, right? And so that it goes on. There we go. A little tricky to do that. So again, some of your different immersion blenders can come with different attachments. This one has an attachment on it that allows you to break up the strawberries. So it's got little tiny holes on it versus the normal one that you might find on a regular immersion blender, which will do the trick too. This is what I have. This is what I use at my shop. So I don't have a Turbo Mix, but I have a regular blender like that. But since I have it, I want to use it. All right, let me do it. There we go. Oop, didn't hold on long enough. I think it's like 30 seconds. I'm not sure. Here we go. So again, I just made sure to blend it up good, break it all up. Sounds like our gelato vanilla is ready for extraction. Slide which one? The table this way? Okay. Yep. Let me run and get my hard frozen container. All right, and I gotta get my honey. Okay, so what I did with my honey before the show is I went ahead and did some whipped honey, and that's as simple as taking honey and whipping it in our mixer back here. You can do it with a hand mixer. I just used the whisk attachment. I don't know that you can stand there and whisk it for long enough, but it took it, put it in a piping bag, and then I stuck it into the freezer just to give it a little bit more thickness back, so it makes it a little bit easier to spread. Okay, grab a spatula and we'll get going here. Yes, I hear you. You gotta be a little higher. All right, so again, as it comes out, sort of as we've done before, I'm just gonna cut in some of this whipped honey. I don't want to go too overboard on the honey because if it gets it too sugary sweet, sort of just letting it kind of swirl in there. I do a couple flavors I like just to put the whipped honey in versus just straight honey. I think it just holds up a little bit differently than normal honey. If you see a hole, oops, get back on here. See a little hole, maybe you want to stick some honey down in there, that's fine. And I've got probably more than I need here, so I don't want to go too overboard, even though I did a lot of it. I did a pound of honey here, but I don't think I'll use the whole pound. But it's making a nice swirl. Again, I probably should have had my camera up here again so you could see it. Sorry about that. Got a lot going on today. Let's make sure we get it all out. Okay, it's probably pretty good. And again, because of our production, think about all the times we've talked about this with the production schedule. We're doing strawberry next. I don't have to do any rinsing or anything right after this. You can see where in the previous series, sometimes I've had to re-rinse, but because we're doing strawberry right after vanilla, we're fine. A little bit of vanilla is not going to hurt your strawberry for sure. Yes, go right ahead. After, say that again, I'm sorry.
After churning, is it the serving temperature or should you blast freeze?
After churning, is it serving? Yes, that's a great question. Well, you should blast freeze it. That would be best. But if you're in a pinch and you needed to put this out for like serving, as long as you were serving quickly, you could probably get a few servings out of it. I don't know that I would guarantee your dipping cabinet would keep it cold enough right away. That depends on how, where you have your settings are on that. It's best to give it a little bit of time in the blast freezer just to kind of harden it off. It's best for the ice crystals in the ice cream and gelato to kind of freeze up a little bit. But, and it's also so differently good when it's this way versus when it's in a freezer for a while, the flavor is going to change a little bit. So it's sort of like when you make homemade ice cream in an ice cream machine or maker, how you get it out fresh and it tastes different than the next day when you put it out, take it out of the freezer. It's the same thing. So, I can sit there and eat it right out of the machine and I'm thinking, this is good. We need to serve it just now. But then as soon as I put it in the freezer, it changes. Not that it's bad, it just changes it, So just something to think about. But I've thought, I could serve this. Your machine too can also depends on what machine you have, right? So if your machine comes out, where's my can? If your machine comes out where it puts out a more liquidy product, no, you're going to definitely need to harden that off. With the Carpigiani, there's a lot of machines I've seen basically comes out like this. This is scoopable. It's delicious right now, but best practice would be to go ahead and put it in a hardened machine. So let me grab a towel, clean off my edge. Because I just put a little more honey on top of it. I am not, again, a gelato pan decorator. That's not my business, so I don't get into that as much. I've seen people do it, so I try to emulate what they do. So sorry for the nasty. If somebody's out there that knows how to do that, I apologize. But kind of gives you a good look of it right there. Let me give it a good taste. Get a little bit of that honey, hopefully. That turned out very good. Kind of literally, you get a kind of a sweet vanilla taste, and then it's almost a little sweeter with that honey topping on there. So there you go, honey vanilla. All right, I'm gonna stick this in the freezer. I'll be right back. All right, so next thing we're gonna finish up here is our strawberry. So what I was in the process of doing was taking my strawberries and blending them up with some of my dairy base before our vanilla was ready. And so I've got that blended up, and all I did there was defrost the pound of frozen strawberries. And I was thinking while I was mixing it up, I need to kind of mention that when you're using strawberries, try to get IQF strawberries, which are individually quick frozen. They're going to be your best choice for making products that are not like all stuck together. They've been basically flash frozen very quickly, and so they're going to give you the best choice for it. Be careful with fresh strawberries. Yes, we want to support our local berry farms and do that, but there is some chances of the chemicals they use or bugs or anything like that in your strawberries that you get from that. Where they're fresh, flash frozen, there's a little bit more quality control there. So just keep that in mind. So what now? I'm just going to blend this back together in with my other base. And for your own strawberry recipe, you just determine how much strawberry you want to add in. You don't want to go too overboard because then you're going to have to worry about your sugars and your compensation and all that stuff. Our recipe has the 1 pound to our 4-quart base, so that's what we're sticking with. Some people may think, well, that's not very strawberry enough. I want to do a little bit more. Like I'm going to taste this. It's going to taste different than the strawberry I'm used to making. That's okay because it's not my recipe. I've had a lot of good strawberry ice creams that aren't my recipe. Used to be my very favorite ice cream. Now that I make ice cream, I got so many different choices that I can make. I don't know if that's my favorite yet. Still up there. If it's a good strawberry ice cream, it's still up there. And it's actually one of the more harder ones to master. And because they're so, what do I want to say? I guess many variations of strawberry out there. It's not the right word I'm looking for, but so if you thought, okay, I've added the pound of strawberries, but it's just not strawberry enough for me. That's the point. And going back to our process slide that we had, that's the point where you are still in the flavoring process, right? The flavoring step. You might suggest, okay, let me add a little bit of strawberry flavoring. I got some natural strawberry flavoring on the shelf. Let me add just a little bit of that. Maybe you've got a strawberry paste. So you want to add a little bit of that. Maybe it needs just a little touch of sugar. That could be too. Yes. We need to consider sugar on top of the sugar that's in the base. Is that what that was question basically? Yeah, no, generally that's why I was saying you do want to control the amount of strawberries you put in it. Like, obviously if you overload strawberries, if I put 3 pounds of strawberries to one bag, no, you're gonna have a frozen strawberry mess, right? So there is a balance there. So, but your sugar is like for my dairy base is pre-made. When I buy it, I don't know the amounts of sugar because it's not my mix, not my recipe. But if I kind of stay on the slider shire side, and then if I can dial it up to that point where in my research and development side of things, I get to a point where it's either too icy or too sweet or to this or to that, then that's when I start dialing back down and finding where I need to go with it. This is pretty good. I still get a nice strawberry flavor out of it. Um, for me, I'd probably add just a little touch of strawberry flavoring, but I also know I'm going to be adding this delicious strawberry arabesque, and that's going to make up a lot. So this could be a lighter flavor and allowing the swirl that I'm going to put in it to bring that strawberry forward. So I always want to keep in mind, what am I doing with this at the end? What am I adding to it? Because I want this to complement that, or I want that to complement that. So keep that in mind. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and process this out. You notice how fast that last one was done because this is already cooled down. So this one shouldn't take long at all either. So if you've got some questions, this would be a great time that we can answer a few more of those as this finishes up, and then we'll be done. Let me grab my spatula again. We got to get more of these big buckets here. This is my favorite kind of bucket to use. Makes it easier. Okay, and as you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but I'll come up a little closer to the camera in a second, but you can see this is kind of reiterates why. Let me get it started. You can kind of see what I was talking about when you got your strawberries and you got your strawberry seeds in there. Can you see that, Olivia? Is it okay? Zoom in on that. Okay, so you can see all the seeds that are left just in my container alone. Those also can get left in your machine. So if you're trying to make something else after this, you either need to make another strawberry, or you might need to make, if you want to switch to a raspberry, you could probably be okay there. Anything with seeds in it, just because there's going to be left over, and then do your cleaning process. Yes. We actually use one base for our whole production. What we do with that base, so the question was, how many different bases do you need to have to run a shop with 25 different ice creams? Okay, so we offer about 32 ice creams. Some of those are Italian ice and sorbets, but in that scheme of things, so maybe about 25 ice creams, let's just say that I use the one base for all of those flavors. So what I'm doing is buying a generic base, not generic. I use Meadowvale. And I love it because of everything I talked about at the beginning, right? I like the taste of it. I like the quality. I like the company. I like the price. I like the availability. I can get it. So that's all plays in that. We didn't always use Meadowvale. We've used other product as well. But when you get a base, you want to get a very good base that you can take in any direction you want. You can make it chocolate, you can make it pistachio, you can make it vanilla, you can make it strawberry, all sorts of different flavors. It just kind of depends on what you want to do with it. As far as market, like where you're at and the amount of business you get, that's going to determine how much of that base you need. The other one I will mention is if you're having a dairy-free option, then yeah, we offer pea protein, which is Meadowvale's Perfection, or coconut milk base. So sometimes we'll carry those products in addition to our regular dairy products. Actually, we always carry at least 3 flavors of those. But that allows you to have a couple different bases. You just have to be very, very aware in your production schedule how you manage those, because coconut milk has a different use time versus pea protein versus regular dairy. So when you get it in, you get it thawed out, you've got to make plans to get it used and get it frozen and get it ready to go before it runs out of its time that it needs to be made. Because once it's thawed, then you're kind of on a schedule. We don't usually have a problem with that because we're running through it pretty fast, but it is something to consider. What is the key to making my best strawberry ice cream is the question. I just like a good strawberry ice cream that leaves that flavor in your mouth. I try to make it as easy as I can. So yes, if I had always had the chance to get my Arabesque in there and I didn't mind the cost of this, again, I'm a little frugal. So this is a fantastic product. I mean, I could eat this directly out of the bottle, but for my best strawberry ice cream, it doesn't necessarily have to have a swirl in it. It just has to taste nice and strawberry sweet when I eat it. And it's also, the other thing I think about too is, can I top it off with something, right? Can I complement it with a strawberry topping or complement it with a hot fudge topping? That's the kind of thing. But I've had so many different strawberry ice creams that's from a really light pink that where you can barely taste strawberry to the darkest pink and you barely taste strawberry. I mean, there's literally the gamut is out there. So I want that strawberry ice cream. I prefer when there's natural strawberries used in it. That's my preference. Machine's done already. Another question. Yep.
Same person asked, in that case, ice cream will have different anti-freezing points if it's one thing.
Would the one base have different anti-freezing points was the question? Okay. So addressing that a little bit, we go into that a little bit into our Frozen Dessert University courses here, but think about if you're adding sugar, extra sugar in there, you're going to increase that anti-freezing point because sugar is your anti-freeze, right? Anti-freeze to it. Let me come back to that. So Olivia, remind me, and we'll finish that up. But I do need to go back and get my ice cream out. I'm going to grab my next frozen pan. Okay, so let's get our strawberry out of here. Get my Arabesque ready. So as we've done previously, I'm just going to put a little bit on the bottom. Yes, we know. And here again, I'm just kind of pushing that product down in there. I'm going to cut that off for just a second so I can get a little bit control because I want to make sure I'm in control of that. I'm just going to stick this in and give myself a chance to kind of just cut it down in. And again, this is adding a lot of strawberry flavor because I know this product. I've used this myself and I love it. It is an extra step. So again, for your production person or your production schedule, doing this takes a little bit longer than just opening it and extracting it right out. But I want to make sure I get enough down in there. I've got some on the bottom too. But you can see right now that back to our question about the earlier, can I serve this from now? Absolutely. This would be delicious right now. It's just a little bit softer than maybe your cabinet would normally see. But hardening it off again is the best practice because you want that to help freeze all those molecules that are in here. Come on. Not fall in the right direction. And so I'm just kind of layering it and swirling this in as best I can. I'm not going too overboard on it. All right, hold on just a moment. Let me get this finished so I can hear them. And I want to go back to that other question. Don't want to forget that one. Anti-freezing point. It's made a quite good pan. Almost two. All right. We're pretty much done there. Okay, let's bring it over here and finish it up. Nice big old pan. Strawberry ice cream. I want to just dive into it. Again, still one of my favorites. All right, so let's talk about anti-freezing point for just a second. And when you add sugars, you add caramels, swirls, um, honey, the one I just added, those kinds of things are going to increase your uh, freezing point, right? So when I bring those out in my cabinet, I very consciously select, I want that spot in the corner. And the reason I want to do that is because in my business with hard ice cream, our coolers, our dipping cabinets are hard freezers on the side, right? On a gelato cabinet, it's blowing air, circulating cold air, right? So it's kind of a more even keel throughout the whole machine or whole dipping cabinet. But in a freezer, a dipping cabinet for ice cream, you want to select the corners for your most sweet ice creams, like your caramel, your cookie dough ice creams, your anything with marshmallows, another one, right? So anytime I add those swirls in to my products, even as an inclusion at the end, I constantly think, okay, this one has got to go into a corner spot. Sometimes I'll walk in and my staff hasn't done that, and it's very soft, right? It's kind of soupy to the serving. And I'm like, immediately I get it moved or tell them to instruct them where to put it because they didn't think about that part of it. So I'm not doing a real great job of decorating this one, but I'm just going to kind of give it a pretty little swirl mound here like that. Oh, I'm going to eat off that one in just a minute. And then we're going to just add a little bit more of the strawberry topping on top. And there you have your strawberry ice cream. One of my favorites. Mmm, top notch. Somebody asked, that's good ice cream. That's good strawberry. But again, I'm picking up on a lot of this too. So again, when it freezes, I'll test it again. Hopefully before I leave. So I'm going to clean up my pan edge a little bit. So we have a couple more questions. I do have to run this over and put it in the hardening cabinet. Absolutely. It's the company that makes it is Pre-Gel. So if you were to visit their website and you just typed in a strawberry topping, you probably have this one come back at you. But it's Arabeschi. So it's Arbeschi. It's, I don't know if you can zoom in on that a little bit, but I enjoy saying it just as much as I enjoy eating it. But Arabeschi is great for a topping. They do make a top up product as well, and that's like a caramel chocolate sauce, strawberry. I don't know if they have a strawberry topping or not. I always just think about I'm going to use the Arabeschi for it. And Arabeschi, I always think in my head, I'm going to use it mostly in the kitchen when I'm doing an inclusion in my ice cream as a swirl it. Let me run this to the freezer so it hardens off a little bit before I leave. All right, any questions more then? All right. The paste base, Meadowvale. Meadowvale is a great one. We've also, if you can't get Meadowvale in your area, which is slim to none, they're getting out there. I'm trying to remember. There's Classic Mix, Lloyd's out of Pennsylvania. Hood is a very common one. Saputo is available at your distributors. Trying to think of another big one. Scott Brothers, I believe in California, has base. There is definitely your local creameries. Don't forget them. Check with them for sure. trying to think if what's the other one? I feel like I'm missing one. But if you research ice cream dairy bases, you'll find your selection, and they will send you samples. So that's why I say at the beginning of this, find one that you like, right? Ask for samples, make some things with them, make the same thing with them, right? Not only taste the dairy base, but let's say for my vanilla recipe, right? I'm going to make a Meadowvale base. And don't forget, now I'm going to throw in here too, you've got anywhere from 10% to 16%. Usually what you can get through those providers. Sometimes they'll give you an 18% choice. But ice cream's got to be 10% minimum, but you can go all the way up. So you've got to find the fat percentage that you want to try. And when you do that, then you start thinking, okay, I'm going to go, I want to sample from Meadowvale, I want to sample from Classic, I want to sample from Lloyd's. You got to be able to, one, get it, two, get the same fat from each one, and then make that same recipe each time. Then compare them, because that's where you're going to get and it's all that R&D, that research and development section where you have to think about that. Yeah, you want to test each base privately, or not privately, separately. Sorry. You want to test each base separately, just spoon it, just eat it, just like I do. And you'll see the difference. If you get all of them side by side, you'll taste the difference in each one. And that's your prerogative, what you want to put into it, right? We also choose Meadowvale because they're an employee-owned company, right? They're not a giant conglomerate that's owned by another dairy. So that's a personal reason for me. So there's things like that weigh into your selection as well. I hope that answered your question. Mm-hmm.
Two more questions. One person asked, hardening cabinet temperature and time to keep in before moving to display cabinet. I think what temperature should it get to in a hardening cabinet before you?
Usually hardening cabinet, you just want to keep it in there for just maybe a couple hours. I know for ice cream, for us, it takes a couple hours for ours to freeze down good. The temp, we got ours set at -25 right now. Our hardening cabinet, our shop can actually go down to like -85 degrees Celsius, which is -113 degrees Fahrenheit, I think. So it's an old lab freezer that we use as a hardening cabinet, and it snows in there, and we have to shovel out the snow every once in a while. I mean, you could open it and see the snow falling. It's kind of crazy, but we don't keep them in there. We don't have to. We don't keep them in there very long. So hardening cabinet here at the showroom, we have it set for -25, and it stays in there. Usually when we're doing a class, we keep it in there like overnight, and we're done. Preferably, you probably only want to keep it in there for just a couple hours, and then you can move it to your showcase.
Fresh fruit ice cream, it would be great to have recommendations for additives that improve flavor, like acids or specific sugar.
Fruit ice creams using natural fruit and flavoring and sugar. I'm not sure I follow exactly.
For acids that would improve flavor, such as acids.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Okay, got your question now. Yes. For strawberry, just to kind of, since we just did that and it's top of my mind, strawberry, I do personally add a little bit of citric acid to my recipe to pop that fruit flavor up. So any fruit flavor that you want to pop, if you kind of research what the main acid is in that fruit to get that to pop forward, you can add that. You can buy malic acid, you can buy citric acid. Those are both good things to add into your ice cream. Now be careful with the citric acid. Generally when I add that, I've already started the freezing process, because I've had it where I've just added it into my dairy base and it starts to curdle on me right away. So I found the trick is to let it start cooling down and getting it almost to that frozen stage, adding that citric acid, and then it allows it to not curdle because it's already cold. But just be aware, I think I forget, it was watermelon, there's a different acid in it. So if you're trying to do a watermelon sorbet, you might not want to add citric acid, but you would add, I think it's malic, I'm not sure on that one, off the top of my head. If I'm ever in doubt, I just kind of research it and kind of see which one might help me there. But that's a good question, because fruit flavors do need a little boost sometimes. If you don't have like a citric acid that you purchase, there's a 50% citric acid solution that a lot of companies sell. You can squeeze just a little bit of lemon juice in that. A little lemon zest in the strawberry would be really good too.
Very, very helpful.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Any other last minute questions? I've lost track of time because I'm having so much fun, so I probably need to get off of here. Let you go. All right. Well, thank you all for attending. And if you're seeing this and recorded, thank you for watching. Catch us next month. What day is the next month, Olivia? Is it June 15th, I think? I think I put it on my calendar. We also have a June 3rd show, I believe, is yogurt soft serve. Yeah. So we have the yogurt class coming up June 3rd. We have the seasonal flavor class coming up the 15th. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Olivia, it's the standards like cookies and cream and something else. The nostalgic flavors, yeah. So we'll get a chance to do those. Those are pretty easy ones to do, very popular ones. So we'll get together for that. And I just don't want to forget to mention, if you're interested in all this, that you're kind of wet the whistle a little bit and you'd like to attend a Frozen Dessert University. We're having a class in July. All the information is available on our website. So look into that and see about coming to that. And we can meet me in person and I get to meet you in person. All right. Well, thank you so very much for attending, and we will see you next month, hopefully. Bye-bye.